Hello and welcome to Martinis Eco and Country Bites, coming to you from Canberra. We've just had what you would call a somewhat mock or interpretive inquiry, because this Senate committee, namely Senator Sarah Hanson-Young, decided that she was going to cancel this inquiry hearing when we got to Canberra last minute yesterday. So incredibly disappointing. We had rung her office late afternoon before, refused to speak to us. And then when we arrived at Parliament House yesterday, we were told it had been cancelled. So today we were invited to the Parliament House to speak with Senator Ross Cadell, and then the other groups behind me here from the Illawarra chapter and Port Stephens, so we can have our voices heard. Suzanne, what's your takeaway from all of this right now?
What can I say? Our voices weren't heard. We've tried to raise it here. I still think we've got a long way to go, and time will tell.
So I do say big thanks to Senator Ross Cadell and Leah Blythe, who were the two senators present today to hear us, to hear the voice of Western Australia, to be represented, to share our concerns, because no answers have been given from Mr. Bowen and the Labor and co. They've got to go. Let's just be honest here. This diabolical plan to put offshore wind turbines all throughout Western Australia as well as the East Coast, it really needs to be stopped. The Liberals are making a lot of promises that if they get in, that they are going to completely disband this whole plan. We've had discussions yesterday. We met with Peter Dutton's office and his head policy advisor, where we expressed that we want out of the Goa agreement, and net zero is what is the overarching agenda and ideology that's coming from foreign corporations and foreign entities that don't represent the people of Australia, don't represent WA at all, and all it's going to cause is irreversible habitat destruction, biodiversity loss, and huge economic impact on our beautiful, pristine oceans and our incredibly beautiful tourist destinations, especially in WA being a mecca of what we are. What else do you think is a takeaway from all of this, Suzanne?
I think, sadly, we're not alone in this. Communities all around Australia are going through exactly what we're going. They've got the same concerns, the same fears, and they've experienced the same stonewalling. So the government's got a long way to go to appease the community on this. We need answers, and they're just not giving them to us.
Yes. So here we are, stonewalled, but we did get at least some voice and representation for WA, which wouldn't have happened if we hadn't been able to crowdfund and just put our butts on planes and be here physically. If we hadn't been here physically, none of this would have been heard. So I'm glad that we put in the effort to do this and people believed in us coming over to represent them. So thank you for that. All I can say is that this is not even close to being over. I keep reiterating that we will not allow one single offshore wind turbine to be put in WA waters and cause destruction.
Absolutely.
Once one area goes, they'll all fall. So state and federal plans we have. Lack of transparency, and we're going to hold them accountable.
I have to warn us, you are not covered by full parliamentary privilege. If there's anything that you wish to say that's a little bit contentious, we're happy to close the meeting and stop broadcasting and have a private discussion. We think to bring that up in evidence or something later. The purpose of this is to gather information for our inquiry. So that is why we're here. And I'd just like to say, you have Senator Lee Blythe with me. I'm Senator Cadell. My chief of staff is acting secretary for the moment. So do you have an opening statement that you'd like to say that we can take?
More than anything, I think that coming over from WA, we have to sound fun to be here.
Well,
Having to ask for money from the public was quite confronting because we had such little notice. And I think that this is, again, part of this due process that should have happened in a way that was much more professional, to be perfectly honest, let alone more accountable. So in Western Australia, our feasibility licenses haven't been announced, but of course we have our state election this weekend. So we're anticipating that will happen very soon after the state election, once the Labor government has ensured that they're not causing any more ruckus over in WA. Because if they had announced the feasibility licenses along with the Hunter and Wandle, then probably things would be very, very different right now, which is, again, a form of like manipulation and not being transparent in these processes at all. So as far as we're concerned, the entire process for the consultation that happened in WA, I attended 5, there were 6, and at no point could I say I came up with one answer that would give me a base data or some foundation of what was planned. It was all conceptual, and there was not one person that had even stepped foot in Western Australia apart from one. So all of the representatives from the Department of Climate Change, Energy and Water had never been in Western Australia previously apart from one, which tells me that they are so out of touch with what's going on in Western Australia and what was applicable to our region and area.
So,
Yeah, thanks for your time. We're just a community that wants answers, basically, that we've not been given. I also attended 5 consultation sessions out of the 6, and I had to attend all 5 of them because my questions weren't answered. I kept asking the same questions and no one would give me answers. I'd get sent to another person. And this is the resounding story all around Australia. Community wants answers. This is a new technology, never before in Australian waters. We need to get the information so the communities can make informed decisions, and it's actively being withheld. Well, that's what the feeling is in the community. We've got fishing industries, we've got tourism industries, and the community at large, and we're all searching for answers, and they're just being blocked from them.
You mentioned this search for answers. You've got a bunch of people coming out from other states to Western Australia that aren't necessarily, we've heard the previous witness talk about not a lot of answers in the environmental space, in the engineering space. You've had to not be answered anymore because you've asked the same question without getting answers 5 times. Was the consultation, in your view, just to tick the box to say we've done it rather than to perform any sort of community, get a social license or get community backing for it?
It was 100%. It felt like a tick the box, but even more than that, it actually felt like an advertorial for the wind industry. We felt like it was a promotional event put on and almost sponsored by the wind industry. It was, they had invited proponents that actually attend and mingled with the public and made out as though they were public members. You know,
Sorry, they didn't disclose who they were.
No, they were walking around without badges. Just, yeah. I asked quite a few people what they were doing there, and there were people that had been invited to attend because they were going to be doing possibly environmental studies on future work, should it go ahead. It just felt extremely deceptive. You didn't know who you were talking to. If you did go and ask questions, 9 times out of 10, they never gave you an answer and they directed you to someone else, and you had to go and line up and wait behind others asking the same questions, only to be sent to another area. It was just, and as Martine said, the environmental panel that was there to answer questions weren't even from WA.
Yeah.
So,
and they were going off data sets that were actually outdated for a start. When I asked where their data sets came from, I said they were about 2020, 2021. And I said, so you haven't even engaged with local community or experts to get the most up-to-date data, which there would have been a lot because there are a lot of local and regional researchers in that area, especially for our cetaceans, whale protection, as well as even the Department of the D4, which is the Department of Parks and Wildlife. They always have base data that they would have been able to provide that's really current, but unfortunately there wasn't any. When I asked a few simple questions about, you know, what kind of endemic species are you aware of here in our very unique environment here, because we have a what's called a lineal limestone reef system that runs along the coastline all the way from just the other side of Cape Naturalist all the way up to the back of Perth and Rottnest. So what we're looking at here is when we ask these questions, they didn't know what the rock lobster industry were, they didn't know who the endemic jewfish was, they didn't know anything about the reef systems that were off there. I said, had any of them ever looked at any footage under the water? What we're looking at here as far as our very unique marine system, The thing is, it does make it very different because on the western seaboards, there's not ever usually a coral reef system. Because we have the Lewin Current, it makes it very, very unique. And because of that, we have the most rare and endangered species that you can imagine, because they're only found in this region. So it's a biodiversity hotspot. So Tanya Plevisek has been MIA in this whole discussion completely. We have tried to get answers, even in my submission and letters, I addressed it to her department as well, but we only got a response from Mr. Bowen's office, really. So, which is really disheartening because it seems to be that the words of sustainability, protection of habitat, and protection of biodiversity have all gone out the window for this overarching agenda where we have to hit the climate change hysteria. We've got to put in industry that's going to save us, even though we're going to be causing devastating irreparable damage.
You mentioned this reef system. There's, on New South Wales, I'm not able to move, but that was information to me. So you've written to the Environment Minister's office about the reef system and the species there and not got feedback at all.
We spoke to everyone that was there that was supposed to be their experts, and they had no idea what they were talking about. We had a young gentleman who, in some way I felt sorry for some of the representatives that were sent over. I said, you guys were slap lambs to the slaughter, and that was because they were not given the correct information to go and represent what was being planned. And when we asked the questions that they did, they were so misinformed and they had no idea what they were talking about.
Apologising. They just kept saying sorry all the time.
Do you think, do you think they would send people without the information so they couldn't give answers?
Both. I think it was both, yes. I think that was quite an intentional thing to make sure that they couldn't give too much information. The thing that's more disconcerting about it, those people that were the experts were the University of Western Australia that has received millions of funding from the Department of Climate Change, Energy and Water. So they have been supporting the offshore wind turbine industry and saying that they're trying to be an objective, unbiased, scientific, sounding board, I guess, but it's just an echo chamber for Mr. Bowen and his agenda, because a lot of the research they're doing at UWA that we can see that funding is going towards is actually directly for the wind turbine industry itself. So it's offshore that they're researching and doing it for to put into our waters. That's not unbiased. That's not doing your due diligence in what environmental impact assessment should be.
Absolutely, and I'm sort of a bit flabbergasted at that there is, and WA is beautiful. I'm very lucky I've got relatives that live there, so it sort of astounds me that experts aren't looking at what the environmental impact would be of your shores when we are doing this for ideological reasons for the environment. It sort of seems like you're going to take it from one side and destroy something on the other. Is it fair to say that the community is also aware of all of this, and I guess in terms of backlash, was the consultation process wide enough that you had, enough of the community knowing about it?
Oh, absolutely not. The consultation process is, I'm going to describe exactly what it was.
Yeah, sure.
So the first one that I turned up was the First Nation in Bunbury, which started at 19th, 20th and 21st of March last year. So I turned up to the first one, and as soon as I looked at the front door, there were two people on either side interrogating people before they went in, what do you want to know? That is not an open forum. What you're doing is already intimidating people at the front door and making them feel on the spot because they don't even have questions yet. A lot of people come in, a lot of people so you come there to hear about what's going on. And instead of being a Q&A, which happened the day before, that descended into chaos at the Binninga recreation fishing, I think you probably heard about that. It escalated into disorder because they put people in there acting as if they were experts, talking to third, fourth, fifth generation expert fishermen that had already been locked out of their oceans because of declining stocks, and they made it sure that the changes were about sustainability for that area. So what it was is that they were saying, oh, we're going to do this, and they're like, are you kidding? That's why it escalated. So now they changed it. So instead of sticking to a Q&A where they could have an open source conversation, everyone was going to have a microphone available to them, so there would be one answer, a So one question with one answer. People that had hearing issues could actually participate. People that had mobility issues that couldn't even navigate the room because it was so packed. That's how many people turned up. We estimate over 700. We think there were more.
So many people left though because there was no seating. They couldn't be heard. Elderly people just could not hear. There was so much noise. It was ridiculous.
So I'm not embarrassed to say that I saw it absolutely descending into chaos, people getting very angry. I just gravitate towards elderly people. I don't know what it is, it's a gift, I think, but a couple of elderly people came up and I was saying, you know, like, they're like, I can't hear a thing, you know, like, how are we supposed to get answers when they're telling us to go here and go there and we're all huddled in together and I can't hear what's going on. My hearing aids are like having feedback. All I want to do is have transparency of listening to what other people have to say. Then I might be able to form a question for myself that then I'm like, well, I've heard this information. That makes me want to ask this. That is what a consultation process should be.
And so, sorry, I'll just interrupt there. When we say that it was not genuine and felt contrived, there were large montages all around the room of what they believe it may look like on our geographic bay. Those montages were totally missing any of the substations that are required in any wind turbine industry.
An important part of it.
Exactly, and they are actually rather massive, and they are closest into land as well. They were missing in all the montages, and I questioned at length, and it took quite a long time, and I had to go to several different people. Why haven't you put the substations in? This is not an honest depiction of what we will see here. And if you haven't done any homework on the industry, you wouldn't even know that. And the response I got after quite a bit of interrogation was it was a considered decision not to include them in the imagery because they didn't present well.
No.
So
in writing.
They said that to me verbally because I kept questioning why haven't you put these on the images? Because let's face it, images. Yeah. I was told in person it was a considered decision not to include them in the imagery because they didn't present well. And that's when I went, oh, they don't present well. So we're coming to this information session, a consultation to get feedback as a community of how this is going to impact our lives, where we live every day, and you're not being honest right from the get-go. These are big glossy photos with tiny little turbines way in the distance, which even that is it's misrepresentation. It's total misrepresentation. But to then not include the substations and be so upfront as to say, yeah, they didn't present well, so we're not going to include. That is misleading the public, I feel, and so did a lot of other people.
Maybe that's why they didn't give you the information, because that didn't present the whole time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it does make you wonder, doesn't it? Because then you start to question the whole process. What is actually honest in this? What are we being fed?
So going back, I just wanted to finish what we're talking about, how there were so many people with various needs to be part of what you call a community consultation. There were people with mobility issues, there were people with hearing disabilities, all kinds of things. They were excluded because there wasn't enough seating and the noise was so loud. So I took it upon myself because a number of the older ones said, this is disgraceful. You know, I'm 80 years old and I wrote a list. And so I said, you know what? Okay, so I hopped up on a chair and I knocked on the door and I said, excuse me. And we had a cast of vote and the entire room voted in front of the Department of Climate Change, Energy and Water. They wanted the Q&A restored to what it was and that was promised. They wanted a microphone where there was one question and one answer being told at one time. So everyone would be on the same level of awareness at the same time. Then we would be able to have some discord that was positive. They refused that. As I left the room, the offshore infrastructure regulator came and followed me out and said, it didn't go well. We should have had a mediator. And I said, I'm more than happy to mediate if you like at the second session. I said, I think having someone who's a local and is probably known a little bit of what we're here to do is to have a constructive dialogue. They promised that they would change it to a Q&A, that we would have a microphone. And when we turned up to the next session and went back on that, and both the DCCW and the offshore regulator said no, they won't be returning back to a Q&A, and then denied they even had that conversation. Like when I say, when we're talking about total disregard, so actually denying a handshake and the agreement, I have statutory declarations here for people that couldn't testify today that were going to.
Would you be willing to table those?
Yes, we have all of these copies for you. And so this is where the breakdown with community escalated to a point where by the second session, it was just people absolutely furious.
So can I ask you that those sessions, if they weren't Q&A and you had pictures that weren't actually representative of truth, what were you being told in those sections?
Pretty much refer back to the website.
Okay.
Is what it was. They had some handouts that said, oh, we'll be updating the website. It's like, that's not good enough. How tall are they going to be? Where are they going to be manufactured? What are the blades going to be made of?
So they
No.
weren't even giving you that basic level
No,
of
Zero.
information.
they just kept it. Like I said, the amount of times I was told, yeah, sorry, I've got that information, sorry.
So if I can get, it sort of boggles my mind, and I am sort of, a few weeks into this. So the department sent a whole lot of people that have never been to WA before,
Apart from
getting at an incredible expense to the taxpayer to engage with community, that they then cancelled that engagement essentially to give it just as a, we're going to give you information, but then didn't actually give the community any information either.
That's correct.
And then cancel the inquiry that was going to actually
And
inquire
then
into
we
what
will
happened.
inquire into
So-
what went wrong.
So when you talk about steamroll and
Correct.
stonewall, I would say that in WA, we had that all the way. When I turned up to the next day, I was told that if I was disruptive at all, I'd be asked to leave, which I don't believe I was disruptive. All I was trying to do was give the community a voice again, where it's like, do we want to return to a Q&A? Unanimously, it was voted. They were told everyone wanted a Q&A. We went to the next session, there was hundreds. So the first session was 700 to 800. Down in the second session, about the same. And then we went down to Bustleton, there was over 700 people. People got turned away because the venue was far too small, I think by design, because they wanted to control the people going in and out to the breakout centres, areas. And this is where people got so angry and fed up and just left and walked away because they couldn't even get into have any questions answered at all because there wasn't a venue big enough.
Right, so it's fair to say this really wasn't about community engagement.
No.
This is just ticking a box to say that
Promoting the winter.
we've done a minimum
At the
requirement.
final session held in Mandurah, I went to, and I went to 5 of those so I could try and get more information to gain. And I was told, oh, not you again, I'm not speaking to you.
No.
And I said, I've come here because you're not answering my questions. And they literally turned their back on me and walked away. The only person that would talk to me at that meeting was Owen Wilson, who was in charge of it. And I literally sat down with him, and that's when I was finally getting some detail. But the average person would not do that. They don't have the time to go to 5 community sessions, and they don't have the tenacity to, and if you haven't done your homework, you don't even know what questions to ask, because I had to ask the same question 5 times in numerous different ways to even get anywhere. It's just.
So were they giving you information at least to say, we don't think there'll be an environmental impact, or we just haven't done that yet?
They haven't done that yet. That
Oh,
will
that's
come. That will come
That's
later.
not
Actually,
later.
the environment.
Yeah,
So
okay.
the amount of time they always said, "Oh, we're not up to that stage yet." That will be coming in the environmental studies.
They did disclose that the proponents are the ones who will be doing the environmental impact assessment, which to me is abhorrent, because you don't even put any industry in an environment that you don't even know you're dealing with. If you're not even aware of what's in that ocean and the impact it's going to be as a new industry, 1, there should be a precautionary principle, and 2, you do the environmental impact before an industry should even be released into this country.
So fair to say, like New South Wales, this is highly experimental, what they're proposing to do. No one knows what the economic or environmental impacts will be to it. And we're going to risk a whole, and this is tourism, it's commercial fishing, it's recreational fishers, it's people who just want to be able to go and enjoy the beach and live in these communities and look out and go, that is, and I think that's one thing about Australia is with people all around the world, envy us because we have the most pristine, beautiful landscapes that you can imagine.
And southwest of WA, it's a biodiversity hotspot.
It's
There's
stunning.
very few of those in the world. We are a biodiversity
And
hotspot.
people come
Yeah.
from all over the world to see it, and and that's
And
that's
Bunbury
amazing.
has a
Yeah.
dolphin visitor centre where
Yeah.
last weekend, Sunday, I was swimming with dolphins on the beach where they want to put these things. I was
Yeah.
swimming with dolphins.
Yeah.
It's too much to risk. It's just
And for experimental power,
Exactly.
it's going to make everyone's power
And
prices probably more expensive.
I think
Yeah.
everyone has to acknowledge that Labor signed up to the Global Offshore Wind Alliance,
Yeah.
GOA, and we are taking directions from the other side of the world who has vested interest in this. And that is why all around Australia, communities are up in arms because we are taking instruction and direction from the other side of the world on what we do in Australian waters. That is criminal. Our government is selling us out. Our
These are-
waters should be
yeah,
protected.
foreign policies.
This is industrialising our waters from the other side of the world. Do you think Denmark cares about our rock lobster industry, about our fishing industry, about coral that's in WA? They don't care. They have vested interest. Denmark is the hotspot for making money off the wind turbine industry. You know, it's bad enough on land, and we've learned that it's not successful there. Now they want to come and ruin our marine environment. The community's saying no. It's just way too risky.
No, we've got to move on. Just similar question to the last one. Were you aware of any specific consultation with the fishing industry or the tourism industry, or that was not done at all?
No, so what I took, as a campaign coordinator, the first thing I've been involved in this a little bit before, so I was able to identify, because I studied marine science and this was my jam. I knew straight away the rock lobster industry, professional fisheries. We have a most sustainable fisheries in the world. We also have an octopus fisheries that won a sustainability award last year. It's all in this area that's absolutely under threat. So what you don't realise is when you're talking to a group of people, they don't even comprehend how the rock lobster industry exists. And if you destroy this limestone reef system, the rock lobster are going to disappear. That's just from disruption of the physical habitat. That's without the underwater cables and that they cause EMF and failure for larvae to hatch and deformities. They actually cause paralysis as well.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.